Snow as far as the eye can see. In this icy universe swept by strong winds, a city resists. Each year, during the sun season, the city guilds organize expeditions. Their destination, the Valley of the Ancients, where vestiges of an antediluvian civilization might be buried. In search of an answer, prestige, or wealth, each guild has its own motivations. Hello, and welcome to a Quackalope Kickstarter preview of Ice, a game published by This Way, designed by Brago and Samson F. Parrott, and illustrated by Leonard Dupont. First of all, to get that out of the way, everything that you're seeing in the B-roll is strictly prototype and a work in progress. If you want to see this game in its full, glorious, rendered beauty, make sure to go to the Kickstarter or even open up the tabletop simulator link that we will include here and that is also included on the Kickstarter page so that you can get an idea of how this actually looks. But with that out of the way, Ice is a 1 to 5 player game with 60 to 120 minutes in duration, and essentially what you'll be doing here is that you're going to be an expedition leader representing one of the 5 guilds in the city. Your objective? To gain the most prestige for your guild and ultimately be declared the best guild in the city. You will do this by going deep, and deeper into this area, into this icy, dangerous landscape to uncover the hidden vestiges or mysteries that are underneath each layer of ice. Throughout the game, you'll be revealing either some actions or artifacts, which will give you different opportunities as the game evolves. Ultimately, as I said, you're just trying to get prestige points, and the player who has the most prestige points at the end of the game will ultimately be declared the winner. However, even though that might sound a tad complicated, Ice is actually a pretty straightforward game. Ultimately, you're only going to have 5 actions, and all those actions do is kind of deal with elements on the board. Ice is a game all about exploration, action point and action selection, and set collection to a certain degree. Each of the actions are going to involve either bringing in archeologists, which are going to help you in your expedition, basically making excavation a little bit easier. Actions that let you move your main meeple, your expedition leader, across the board in order to access different areas, or just get to that one specific tile that you need. And others are going to let you collect boards, excavate tiles so that they can go directly into your hand. And that is probably one of the most interesting things about Ice. As you can see in the B-roll, Ice is a multi-layered game. And I don't mean that mechanically, I mean that literally. Every time you play this game, you're going to set up 5 different layers of tiles. Each of those tiles being randomly assembled and giving you a different game every single time. As you start removing these tiles, you will start revealing tiles that are underneath of different colors and different depths, giving you abilities and special things that you'll be able to do later on in the game. Those tiles, as I mentioned, are going to be abilities that you're going to use in order to affect the game state in some way, or artifacts that are going to give you 1 or 2 things. You're either going to be able to bank them onto your player board in order to unlock special abilities that will make expeditions a little bit easier, or you can cash in those artifacts to complete certain objectives that are either private or public, giving you those much needed prestige points so that you can ultimately win the game. And that, my friends, is Ice in a nutshell. So one of the things that I find really interesting about Ice is this multi-layer board and the implications that it has on the puzzle-based puzzle that you have in front of yourself. The way that the board is set up and how the different meeples interact with these different layers is actually quite fascinating and not something that you would expect at first blush. The depth of decision making that's here is actually quite surprising for a game that only consists of 5 really basic actions that all deal with essentially moving around a hex-based board. What I feel makes this game a really deep puzzle is that the resources that you're putting onto that board, which are mainly going to consist of these little meeples, archeologists, and also camp tiles, are shared across all players. The only thing that you control in this game is your own colored meeple. Beyond that, everything is up to anyone's grab, and that is vital. Because the way that this game works is that you're going to have a game state where at the beginning, it's not going to have a lot of resources or archaeologists that you'll be able to use. But as the game state keeps going and evolving, everything is going to be filled with archaeologists. And those archaeologists are crucial so you can get deeper and deeper to the end or the base of the board faster than anybody else. So you have to be very careful where you're going, where you're distributing those meeples, how you're employing those meeples, and kind of where everyone is at the same time. This is a game that is really going to require that you pay attention to what everyone is doing. And in a puzzle-based game like this, that is not something that you see every day. Mostly these types of games tend to be very solo affairs where what you're doing doesn't necessarily affect everybody else. But that's definitely not going to be the case in Ice. Everyone's actions could potentially lead to incredible turns on your turn, which is something that I find really interesting. In this type of games, foresight or planning is not going to be very easy. There's going to be a lot of transition and evolution as tiles are slowly removed from the board and you start revealing all these different colors that you could be potentially building up the perfect turn for another player. That's why paying attention to what's happening around you is going to be absolutely crucial. And speaking of crucial, I really think that the way that you're engaging with the set collection in this game is quite intriguing. As I mentioned before, these artifact tiles that you're using, well, they do really important things. Having that contention between, oh, do I bank this in order to get this particular special ability, or do I go for that public tile right now so that Larry doesn't take it from me, adds a lot of interesting decisions that, again, are kind of unexpected in a game where I would have assumed that it was just going to be something that I'm doing. And ultimately, this board, the way that it's set up, is actually going to allow for a lot of variability and repeated plays, which is, again, something that is very, very, very much appreciated in a puzzle-based game of this nature. But at the end of the day, who is this game right for, and who might this be wrong for? If you're looking for a game that is going to challenge your decision-making and is always going to make you kind of wonder what to do next, this is going to be perfect for you. And above all, it's all actually going to ramp up throughout the gameplay. The narrative arc in this game, or the mechanical arc, is really good. As you start banking those artifact tiles, you will slowly uncover stronger abilities, giving you the chance to create really cool combos that maybe nobody was expecting, and depending on how each player kind of engages with the board, is going to lead to very different routes and different priorities for each player. Another thing that I find really interesting, which involves that idea of revealing the board, is that, as you can see in the B-roll, as you start removing tiles, you start getting glimpses as to what might be underneath, giving you the ability to plan or at least get a sense of the land so you know what maybe your opponents are going for without even having to wait around for their turn. However, these things also contribute to what might be wrong for some people. I find that level of interactivity absolutely fascinating, but that does mean that players that love real high levels of perfect information, this might not be right for them. Every time that it's going to come to your turn, you might have a completely different board to contend with. Sure, every player has only 5 action points that they'll be able to use and expend throughout the game, but with those special actions, those bonus abilities, and so on and so forth, and actually even guild special abilities, you might be seeing something completely different, which, again, can be a little bit frustrating for some people. In addition to that, the abilities that are in these tiles I think are quite engaging, but depending on how players decide to use them, can lead to some slightly mean moments, and I know for a fact that a lot of people don't like it when others kind of affect what they're planning. And the last thing I'll mention about things that might not be right for you is setup. This is a game that involves a bunch of tiles. We're talking about 5 different layers of tiles that kind of start expanding ever more so. So that means that the setup is going to be a little bit involved. With that said, I believe that the way that they created the main board is actually quite intelligent and smartly made. So it does reduce that setup a little bit, but for people that don't like handling a bunch of tiles and them shifting slightly a little bit every time you approach the game, that might be something to consider when backing this particular title. But at the end of the day, Ice is going to be a no-brainer for puzzle fans that are looking for a little bit of mystery, a little bit of thematics in their tile-based games. If you're looking for a title that actually rewards careful timing, good decision-making, and just a slight level of adaptability, I really implore you to look a little bit deeper into Ice, because I think it might be something that you're going to be a big fan of. And speaking of being a fan of, have you seen this art? It's absolutely gorgeous. It's actually one of the things that made me interested in covering this on our channel. I think they've done an excellent job kind of world building here, and how they've been able to depict actually going down what could be considered the Antarctic and checking out those deeper and deeper layers of ice. It looks absolutely gorgeous on the table, and if you want a better depiction of how that's going to look, again, check out that Kickstarter page or just go to the Tabletop Simulator mod. Try and get the game of this down so you can see how they've kind of colored everything and how they're kind of evoking that sense of exploration, because I think they've done an amazing job. And that, my friends, has been a Kickstarter preview of Ice the board game published by This Way Games. If you liked what we said here, make sure to go to their Kickstarter, read through the page, and maybe consider backing. It's your choice. And if you like what we're doing here on Quackalope, maybe leave a comment. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell so that you know and remind yourself when we post new videos, or just like this video. Anything that you do will be highly, highly appreciated. But regardless of what you do, remember to do the important thing. Get out or stay in and play some games. We'll see you guys next time.